Don't sign anything today. Go back to your car. Sit in the back seat. You'll know when it's time. Her hand was dry and papery when she pressed my parking ticket back into my palm, like she'd picked it up off the ground. But I hadn't dropped it. I was holding it. I know I was holding it. My name is Maya Reeves. I'm 31 years old. I'm a contracts attorney at a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, and I have spent the last 6 years of my career reading between lines that other people never think to question. I am not someone who listens to strangers in parking garages. I am not someone who takes warnings from women I've never met, women who appear out of nowhere between the elevator and the stairwell, women who look at me like they already know how this morning ends. And yet, I didn't go upstairs. I told myself it was the headache. I'd had a low-grade migraine since the night before, the kind that sits just behind your left eye and makes fluorescent lights feel personal. I told myself the garage was cooler than the lobby and I just needed a minute. I told myself a lot of things while I walked back to my car, got in the back seat like she'd said, and sat there in the gray concrete quiet of level 2 with my briefcase on my lap. The meeting was at 9. It was 8:42. I'd been scheduled to sign the final partnership documents that morning. 18 months of work. My fiancé, Connor, and his business partner, Marcus, had been building a boutique real estate investment company, and I had agreed to come in as a silent equity partner. My contribution was the down payment $114,000 I'd saved over 6 years of 70-hour weeks. I kept in an account my mother didn't know about because she would have told me to buy a house. Connor had been so careful about the structure, so thoughtful. He'd said a dozen times that he wanted this to be mine as much as his, that we were building something together, that this was what marriage looked like before the wedding. I sat in the back seat. At 8:51, my phone buzzed. Connor. Hey, you close? Marcus just got here. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, running 5 minutes behind. Traffic on 277. 3 dots. Then, no worries. Take your time. I put my phone face down on the seat beside me and looked at the elevator doors. The woman was gone. She'd been maybe 70, small, wearing a gray uniform I associated with the building's cleaning staff. But I'd been coming to this building for a year and a half, and I had never seen her before. She hadn't been pushing a cart. She hadn't been carrying anything. She was just standing there between me and the elevator, and when she spoke, her voice wasn't dramatic. It wasn't the voice of someone trying to convince me of something. It was the voice of someone delivering information they assumed I already half knew. Don't sign anything today. I picked my phone back up and opened my email. Found the partnership agreement that Marcus's attorney had sent over 3 days ago. I had reviewed it. Of course, I had reviewed it. I'm a contracts attorney. Reviewing documents is what I do in my sleep. I'd gone through it twice. Flagged 2 clauses. Gotten revisions back within 24 hours. It had seemed clean. More than clean. Conservative, even. I opened it again. I don't know what made me scroll to page 31. Honestly, I don't. There was no logical reason. I had already reviewed page 31. But I scrolled there, and I read the amended clause, 14C, and I felt something happen in my chest that I can only describe as the floor dropping out. The revision I had requested was there. But underneath it, in a subsection that had not existed in the previous draft, was language I recognized immediately. Not because I'd seen it in this document. Because I'd seen it in a case study during my 2nd year of law school, presented specifically as an example of what bad faith partners do to freeze out minority equity holders. Clause 14, A-E. Operational decision authority defaults to managing partners in the event of any dispute regarding capital deployment. Dispute resolution to be handled internally per 14D. I turn to 14D. Internal dispute resolution. Binding arbitration. Arbitrator to be selected by managing partners from approved panel. An approved panel that, I now noticed, was listed in Exhibit F. I had not been sent Exhibit F. My hands were completely still. That was the strange part. When I am frightened, really frightened, I go quiet. My body goes quiet. My breathing slows down and my hands go still and I become, in a way I've never been able to explain, very calm. It's not peace, it's the opposite. It's the kind of stillness that exists in the second before something falls. I had just signed over $114,000, my name on an equity stake. My trust in a man I had said yes to on a Tuesday night in October, when he'd gotten down on one knee in the kitchen while pasta was boiling over, and I'd been so caught off guard I'd laughed before I cried. I had done all of that, and I had been one elevator ride away from making it irreversible. I scrolled back through the document. Slower this time. With different eyes. The kind of eyes I use at work when a client brings me something and says it seemed fine, and I have to tell them it was not fine. It was designed to seem fine. By 9:15, I had found 4 more things. A dilution clause buried in the capital expansion section that allowed managing partners to issue new equity shares without minority holder consent, meaning my stake could be diluted from 15% to functionally nothing, legally, with no recourse. A non-compete provision in the exit clause that I had assumed was standard. It was not standard. It was written to apply within a geographic radius of 200 miles and a time window of 5 years. If I ever tried to leave the partnership, I would be legally prohibited from practicing real estate law or any law adjacent to real estate investment within most of the southeastern United States for half a decade. A right of first refusal on my equity stake that expired within 72 hours of any exit notice. 72 hours. Meaning if I ever wanted out, they would have 3 days to buy me out at a valuation they controlled, using a methodology defined in I looked Exhibit G. Also not sent to me. And at the very back, in the signature block, a line I had seen and not registered the first 2 times I read it, signatory confirms receipt and review of all exhibits including F through K. Exhibits F through K, 7 exhibits I had never received. 9:23 a.m. Connor sent another message. Hey, everything okay? I looked at that question for a long time. Everything okay? I thought about the last 8 months. Connor pushing to accelerate the partnership timeline. Connor suggesting I move my savings into a higher yield account he managed I had done it, and then quietly moved the money back to my own account 2 weeks later without telling him. Some instinct I couldn't name at the time. Connor explaining. Patiently, warmly, with his hand on my arm. That I didn't need to be so cautious with the legal language because Marcus's attorney was thorough and anyway, we were family. Connor saying we were family. Connor saying, on 3 separate occasions, that he thought I worked too hard, that I should think about scaling back after the wedding. That he loved me but my hours weren't sustainable for the kind of partnership, the word partnership, he wanted in a marriage. I thought about Marcus, who I had never fully trusted and had never been able to explain why. There was something performed about his warmth. Something that existed exactly 1 inch above the surface. I thought about the woman in the parking garage. 9:26. I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was screenshot every page of the agreement with timestamps. Sent them to my personal email, my work email, and a cloud folder that only I had access to. Then I forwarded the entire document to my colleague Dana with a single line. Please review immediately, specifically 14E, i.e. 14, and the dilution provisions. Don't respond until I call you. Then, I did something that was either very smart or the end of my engagement. I called the building's front desk. Hi, this is Maya Reeves. I have a 9 o'clock with Connor Hale and Marcus Webb in Suite 1140. Can you let them know I'm running late due to a family matter and I'll need to reschedule this dining? Please don't transfer me up, just leave a message. The woman at the desk said, of course. I hung up. Then I sat very still in the back seat of my car and waited to see what happened next. Connor called at 9:31. I let it go to voicemail. At 9:34, Marcus called from a number I had saved but never actually called myself. I let that go too. At 9:39, Connor called again. I answered. Maya, hey, what's going on? The desk said family matter? My sister, I said. I'm sorry, it came up suddenly. I'll explain later. Is everything okay? There was that question again. She's fine, I said. Connor, can you do something for me? Can you send me the full agreement package? I realized I only have the main document. I think the exhibits got cut off in the email. A pause. Very brief. The kind of pause that someone who wasn't listening carefully would miss. Babe, we have everything at the office. You can review it all when you come up. I know, I said. But I like to read things in the car. You know me. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll have Marcus's guy send them over. Thank you, I said. I'll be up as soon as I can. I hung up and watched the elevator doors. At 9:52, an email arrived from Marcus's attorney's office. The subject line said, Full Exhibit Package, Reeves Partnership. Exhibit F was the arbitration panel list. Every name on it was someone I could connect, within 2 degrees, to Marcus. Former colleagues. A fraternity brother. A man who had been a groomsman at Marcus's first wedding. Exhibit G was the equity valuation methodology. It used a formula that was technically defensible and practically designed to produce the lowest possible number. Under that formula, my $114,000 stake in a company that had already begun acquiring properties would be valued at the time of any exit at somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000. Less than half of what I had put in. Legally, cleanly, with my signature on the page confirming I had reviewed and agreed. Exhibits H through K were operational documents. I read them quickly, but it was a paragraph in Exhibit K, the insurance and liability schedule, that made me put the laptop down and press both hands flat against the seat cushion. My name was listed as a beneficiary on a key person life insurance policy. I had not been told about this. The policy value was $400,000. The named beneficiaries in the event of my death were Connor Hale and Marcus Webb, in equal portions. I want to be clear about the order in which my mind processed this. First, I thought, this could be standard practice. Some firms do carry key person policies on equity partners. Then I thought, I am not a key person. I am a silent equity partner with no operational role. There is no business justification for insuring my life. Then I thought about what kind of justification there would be. Then I stopped thinking in that direction because my hands had stopped being still. I got out of the car. I walked to the stairwell, not the elevator. I took the stairs up to the lobby, not to the 11th floor, and I walked straight to a coffee shop 2 doors down from the building where I sat at a corner table with my laptop open and my back to the wall. Dana called at 10:17. Maya. Her voice was careful in a way that told me she had found what I found. Where are you right now? I'm safe, I said. Okay, good, because I need you to tell me you didn't sign this. I didn't sign it. She exhaled. The dilution clause alone is bad faith structuring. This is actionable. The valuation formula in G is borderline fraudulent. I'd have to look at case law, but I think we can argue it. And the arbitration panel. I know. The insurance policy. She stopped. Started again. Maya. I know. Do you want me to come to you? Not yet. I need 1 more hour. Can you pull everything we need to file a complaint with the state bar regarding Marcus Webb's attorney? His name is on the cover letter. Yes. And can you run a search on Marcus Webb and Connor Hale? Anything involving previous business partners, previous litigation, anything that didn't make it into the standard background search? A pause. You think there are others? I didn't answer that directly. Just run it. I'll call you in an hour. I hung up and ordered coffee I didn't drink. Connor texted at 10:30. Should I be worried? I read that 3 times. Should I be worried? The layers in that question. The way it could mean concern for me or something else entirely, depending on what he knew and what he was afraid I'd found. I typed back, everything's okay. Give me a little more time. Take all the time you need, he wrote. We're not going anywhere. No. I imagined they weren't. Dana called back at 11:04. I found something, she said. 2019. A woman named Priya Sandoval. She was a limited partner in a tech startup Marcus co-founded in Raleigh. She put in $60,000. The company dissolved 18 months later. She sued for misrepresentation of the financials. The case was settled out of court, sealed, but the attorney of record on Marcus's side was the same man whose name is on your cover letter. Same pattern? I don't have enough to say that for certain. But the arbitration clause in the 2019 company's founding documents, I found a reference to it in the court filing before it was sealed. The language matches yours almost exactly. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, the coffee shop was still around me, ordinary and bright. A man at the next table arguing cheerfully with someone on his phone about whether the Panthers had a chance this season, and I thought about how strange it is that the world just continues while something is ending. Dana, I need you to do one more thing. Name it. My fiancé listed me as a beneficiary on his personal life insurance policy last year. I want you to find out if he updated that policy in the last 6 months. And I need to know if there's any way to find out whether the key person policy in Exhibit K has been active longer than the document suggests. Silence. Dana, I'm here, she said quietly. I'm going to make some calls. Are you sure you're okay? I'm working on it, I said. At 11:48, I walked back into the building. I rode the elevator to 11. I knocked on the glass door of Suite 1140 and Connor opened it himself, immediately, like he'd been waiting close to the door. He looked good. He always looked good. That was the first thing I ever noticed about him, not his face exactly, but the way he carried himself. The calm, the ease, the sense that he had assessed the room and found it satisfactory. I used to find that attractive. Standing in the doorway of a company built on a foundation designed to swallow me whole, I found it something else. Hey, he said warmly. Opened his arms. I stepped in and hugged him, and over his shoulder I could see Marcus at the conference table. Papers arranged, 2 pens set out side by side. Everything ready. Is your sister okay? Connor asked. She's fine, I said. She called to tell me she's coming to visit next month. You know how she is. She gets dramatic about timing. He laughed. Familiar laugh. Warm laugh. Nothing in his face. I sat down. Marcus smiled at me across the table. We're glad you made it. We've been looking forward to getting this done. Me too, I said. I reached into my briefcase and took out a folder. Actually, before we get to the signatures, I wanted to ask about a few things in the exhibit package. I had a chance to review them this morning. Marcus's smile didn't change, but something shifted behind it. Of course. What questions do you have? I opened the folder. I had printed, in the last 20 minutes, a 12-page memo I had drafted on my phone and sent to the coffee shop's printer. It contained every problematic clause, the Priya Sandoval case reference, a note on the insurance policy, and a 1-paragraph summary of what would happen next if I chose to move forward. I placed it on the table between us. I have questions about the arbitration panel in Exhibit F, I said. Specifically about the conflict of interest structure. I also want to discuss the valuation methodology in Exhibit G, the dilution provisions in 14 Con, and the key person insurance policy that I wasn't informed of prior to receiving the exhibit package this morning. The silence in the room was extraordinary. Connor was the first to speak. Babe, those are all standard. They're not, I said. And my voice was perfectly level. I'm a contracts attorney, Connor. These are not standard provisions. And you know they're not, because if they were standard, you would have sent me the exhibits 3 days ago with the rest of the document. Marcus leaned forward. Maya, I think there may have been a miscommunication. The Priya Sandoval settlement, I said. His face did something complicated. Something I watched carefully and filed. I don't know what you think, you know. I know enough, I said. I know enough to have already sent this document package to 2 colleagues, a state bar inquiry form regarding your attorney, and a letter to my own bank confirming that no authorized transfers will be processed from my accounts without a dual verification I personally approve. I paused. I also know about the key person policy, and I'd like someone at this table to explain to me the business rationale for ensuring the life of a silent equity partner. Connor stood up. You're misreading this, he said. But his voice had lost something. The warmth was still there on the surface, but underneath it there was something that was not warmth at all, something that had always been underneath it and that I had seen occasionally, in small moments, and chosen not to look at directly. Sit down, I said. He sat down. I don't think he meant to. I think it surprised him too. I'm not going to make a scene, I said. I'm not going to threaten you. Here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand up, I'm going to walk out of this office, and over the next 72 hours I'm going to file the appropriate complaints, request a formal review of the insurance policy through the State Insurance Commissioner's office, and meet with a colleague who specializes in fraud litigation. I gathered the papers in front of me, and I'm going to return the ring. Connor's jaw tightened. Maya, if you walk out. I know, I said. The non-compete. I read it. I stood up. It applies to business partnerships, not to employment, not to the practice of law in general. Your attorney drafted it too narrowly. That's the problem with using the same playbook twice. I picked up my briefcase. Tell your attorney I said hello. I walked to the door. You're ruining everything, Connor said behind me. Quietly, not angry, the way someone says something true. I stopped with my hand on the doorframe. I almost signed it, I said without turning around. I was standing at the elevator. I was 40 seconds away. I walked out. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs again. All 11 floors, and by the time I hit the lobby my hands were shaking but my mind was clean, the way it gets when a complicated clause finally resolves itself, and the meaning becomes plain. In the parking garage, I stopped on level 2. I stood between the elevator and the stairwell, exactly where she had been standing. There was no one there. I stood there for a moment anyway, the way you stand somewhere when you're not sure what you're trying to do. Paying attention, maybe, to something that couldn't be explained by anything in my 6 years of legal training or my 12 years of reading contracts and looking for what people are hiding. I got in my car. Front seat this time. Dana met me at my apartment at 1 o'clock with Thai food and her laptop and a legal pad she had already filled with notes on both sides. We worked through the afternoon and into the evening. By 9 p.m., the State Bar inquiry was filed. The insurance commissioner complaint was drafted. My bank had confirmed the account freeze parameters I'd requested. At 9:47, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I answered. It was Connor's mother. She had found out about Priya Sandoval. She had found it herself, she didn't tell me how, and she had been sitting with it for 2 weeks, she said, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to tell me. And when Connor came home that evening and she saw his face, she knew something had happened. She was crying. I want to be honest. I didn't cry. Not then. I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet and I listened to his mother tell me she was sorry, and I said I know, and I meant it. And I was not crying because there was nothing left in that direction to cry about. It had already finished converting itself into something else, something quieter. Something I would have to figure out how to carry going forward, but that was, for now, just a fact. I thanked her, she said, through tears. I always thought there was something. I should have said something sooner. You're saying it now, I said. Connor called 7 times that night. I didn't answer. He texted at 11:58. You don't understand what you've done. This isn't over. I read it. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Dana. Then I put my phone on the charger and went to sleep. 3 weeks later, the insurance commissioner's office opened a formal investigation into the policy. Dana's fraud litigation colleague found 2 additional former partners, one in Greensboro, one in Atlanta, both of whom had exited their partnerships at a loss and signed non-disclosure agreements they'd been told were standard. Both of them, once we reached out, were willing to talk. Marcus's attorney was formally censured by the State Bar. Connor and Marcus's company was placed under a compliance review that effectively froze all their pending acquisitions. I got my money back. Every dollar. Not through litigation. In the end, Connor's attorney called Dana 3 weeks into the proceedings and asked what it would take to make the complaints go away. I told Dana to tell him. Full restitution, a signed acknowledgement of the fraudulent provisions, and a formal letter to the State Bar. He argued. I waited. He called back in 4 days and accepted. I have thought many times about the woman in the parking garage. I've asked the building manager. He had no record of a contract cleaning staff member matching her description working that morning. The woman at the front desk, when I described her, said she had worked there for 9 years and didn't know who I was describing. I don't know who she was. I don't know if she knew about the documents, or about Marcus and Connor, or about any of the specific details that I spent the rest of that morning unraveling. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she saw something in my face that I hadn't seen myself, some version of the calculation I do when I'm reading a contract and something is off, but I don't yet know where, some shadow of that, moving across my expression while I stood at the elevator. Maybe she just knew. I kept the parking ticket. It's in the drawer of my desk at work, behind the hanging files in the back. I don't look at it often. But sometimes, When I'm reviewing a document and something feels just slightly wrong, I open that drawer and look at it for a second. Then I go back and I find the thing I almost missed.